All right, I think it's 4 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the September 10th, 2018 meeting of the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority to order. Linda, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Mike Riggs.
Present.
Stu Wexler.
Here.
Mike Jones.
Present.
Mike Santos.
Here.
Karen Aboud.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Now, so we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment. All right. Hi.
Greetings, Commissioners. My name is Elaine Barkdahl-Spencer. I'm the General Manager of the V&T Railway. Mm-hmm. And I was going to introduce myself as Mike Spencer, based on all the mics here today. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking into a mic. So, but I wanted to come before you today to welcome you all to the new board. And I know we have one seasoned experienced person here, and the rest of you are new. I think that's very exciting. And the reason I say that is I started with a new board. And I've got to tell you, it's the best way to kick off even a new general manager such as myself, having, being able to share fresh ideas, new input, new energy, and momentum. So congratulations. Now on our board, I realize we're going to be losing one of our favorites, and that is Joel Dunn. And he let me know, though, he'll be around for at least another meeting. And so I'm looking forward tonight to finding out who his replacement will be. But Joel, I did bring something with us today. And of course, in the history of, or in the name of history, we always do the historical theme here. I have a certificate for you. And it says, in recognition and appreciation of your service on the 2017 and 18 V&T Railway Commission, Joel Dunn, your time as a commissioner and your assistance in the reorganization of this organization is greatly appreciated. And it's signed Denny Dodson and Elaine Barkdahl-Spencer. And lastly, I want to thank Mike Santos for coming out and riding with us this Sunday. And was that yesterday? Wow. My weekend's blur, but the train's doing very well. I was glad to see Mike and his wife, and I would like to invite the rest of you to come out and take a ride. Just let me know when you're coming out. And I'll make everybody, be on their best behavior. But no, it's a great, great experience. Love the fact that we are kicking off, getting ready for Polar Express season. December, our VIP tickets are, nearly sold out. November, we still have some openings in the VIP section, but the coach trains, we have 10,000 tickets. So we're going to be able to be selling those for a while. We do have a train on November 16th. That is a train where we invite you out to come out with your families and participate in the kickoff. And that we do by invitation. So, of course, I'm sending that invitation to all of you right now. And it's how we warm up for the season, because you'll be the very first show, but the decorations will be at their best. And anyways, I just wanted to say welcome to all of you. I'm looking forward to working with you more and more. And there'll be big plans. One last thing, the sesquicentennial, the 150th anniversary of the V&T Railway from Carson City to Gold Hill, which is what the commission oversees and reconstructed, it's 2019. So this coming year, we're going to have lots of celebrations. And we also plan to announce an extension of the Carson City River Canyon Run. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words and the welcome. And I'm sure Joel will be hard to replace, but we're gonna try to live up to the past with Joel. Any other public comment? If not, moving on to agenda item 5, approval of the August 13th CTA meeting minutes. If there are no changes, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion carried. Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carried. Moving on to agenda item 6 for possible action. Adoption of agenda. Is there any reason to change the agenda order? If not, we'll move on to action item 7, to approve the adjusted CTA fiscal year 18 budget report. Joel?
You bet. So this will be the last of the fiscal year 18 master budget report. Next month you'll get your first of the fiscal year 19. These numbers have not gone through the audit yet. The audit will start next week. I'm hoping we'll have some of the audit finished up. The likelihood of having it, because the October meeting is October 8th, which is an early meeting. I'm not anticipating having the results of the audit back until November. So we'll revisit the fiscal year 18 numbers with final numbers through the audit. They normally have very minor changes, usually just a few changes of where something was allocated, but bottom line usually stays about the same. So going down, looking at the revenues. The revenues were our projections, and the actual came in at just a little over 100% of what we had augmented. The augmented in May at $2,308,403.51. We came in at $2,313,213.19. So reflective of, once again, 100.2% above what we had budgeted. The original amount that we budgeted at the beginning of the fiscal year 18 budget was $2,132,000. So you can see that we did very well this year in our room revenues. And if you need me to break down anything, throughout the line items, let me know, but I'll just go through the bottom line on most of these, except for those that have a little call to action on them. On the next, you've got your carryover, so adding your carryover on the top to the line item, have your expendable revenue at the bottom line. They stay consistent because it's just your carryover plus your total revenues. So once again, both of those are coming in at 100, just over 100%. Moving to page 3 of 5 on the expenses, the first section is your intergovernmental expenditures. On the interlocal agreement, it came in at $205,599.64. The projection was $209,0991. That reflects 98.3%. The only one there that has a kind of a red flag to it, they're all red just because they're above, but you've got the 134.1% for the arts and culture. The reason being is when we transferred the position over to the city, it transferred in March. All of the revenues transferred also. Finance department called. They needed additional money to cover the operations through the end of the fiscal year. We had some carryover, all of the carryover in that budget, then transferred over. So that's the difference between the $61,260.02 and the $82,122.68. So there will be no additional carryover because all of that now stays within the fund that's managed by the city and Mark.
Is that, Joel, is that the difference, 8 months of Mark being under the Tourism Authority and now being under the city?
Correct, exactly. So 8 months under our fiscal budget and 4 months under the city's fiscal budget.
All right, thank you.
Continuing down, once again, these are all just reflective percentages. There's a little bit of a change you see also, though, in the NCOT payment, the 3/8%. There's a little bit of a difference in the formulas that the city uses. It's about a 0.0909 versus a 1%. The state uses 1%. Next year, when we work through the budget, we'll stay reflective in our projections at 1%, so you won't see that fluctuation. But that's the difference you see in that payment from us saying $78,409, which is the formula we used that's consistent with the city's formula, versus the 1% formula from the state, which came in at $84,000. So that's the difference there. Bottom line, intergovernmental, we expended 102.8% of what we had anticipated, and I explained the differences in that. Going down now to expenses with salaries and benefits. Bottom line, we had projected and augmented to $678,079, came in at $508,974, so we spent 75.1% of what we had budgeted.
Joel?
Yes.
Can we go back to page 2 of 5? And I just have a question here. And it says the refunds, reimbursements for 3,211. What would that be?
I'll let Chris answer that.
So for the refunds and reimbursements are things like the building that we're in is owned by the Kaplans. They will donate stuff to us, so we have that line item. Actually, that's donations received down a little bit below. They donated a couple times this year to us. And then the refunds came, one of them was for insurance. We had already prepaid for the current policy, and then when we got a new policy, it was with a different company. So they reimbursed us for what we'd already prepaid for. And the other one was, we were gonna have an event at the Boys and Girls Club, and so we paid to have the flooring put down, but then the event got canceled, so they reimbursed us for the flooring.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
No problem. Once again, anytime you need to jump around, I know this is only the second meeting and you need to familiarize yourself with anything in the line items, certainly now's the time to do that. Bottom line, once again, salaries, benefits, that is reflective. Last month, the last couple of months, we went over the payouts for both Mr. Salinas' position and my position when you transition from being a full-time employee to a non-employee or contract employee. Then there's some payouts with your annual and sick leave, and we've covered those. There's also then the savings of that vacated position. We'll go over the budget in detail again when we look at the salaries and benefits next month with fiscal year 19, and I'll show a comparison between the two. Continuing on to page 4 of 5 in your packet, the heart of the expenses, professional services came in at 93.1%. That's all of the contracts with my contract with NV Consulting, contract employees, all of our marketing outside of our full-time employees, so all videos, photography, all of it falls into this category. We expended $361,089.17 of the $387,662 we allocated. Down to property services, we were right at 100%. Budgeted $120,000, came in at $121,000, $144,82. Continuing down into other services. So other services falls into printing and advertising, special events, trade shows, golf projects. The bus passes are still listed here. You will see that fall off on your next one. We left it here because it was part of the original budget that was passed for 18. And travel and lodging. Bottom line, we had projected our augmented numbers was $267,100. We spent $204,686.22, so reflective of 76.6% of what we had augmented the budget.
Joel?
Yes.
I have another question. I'm such a golfer.
You got it.
That item, you know, what does that, what is the golf projects? Can you explain?
So originally when, 6 years ago when I took over the Tourism Authority, at that time the Visitors Bureau, we were working with a consortium of the 9 local golf courses, and it was called the Divine Nine. And the 2 funding sources for the Divine Nine were the 2 participating visitors bureaus. So both Carson City Visitors Authority and the Carson Valley Visitors Authority kicked in $8,000. Although the Divine Nine is now non-operational, we've continued to leave that $8,000 in there. The intent was to have our past marketing manager and now our new marketing manager will work with our local golf courses and help them in their marketing efforts. So we'll work with our 3 local golf courses. And I think $8,000 is more than enough when we look at a pretty solid digital social campaign and maybe a couple of buys. The golfing industry still relies on some industry and trade shows. We've kind of gone away from that in most of the tourism industry, but we'll certainly help with anything that the golf courses feel is going to be beneficial. So we'll leave that $8,000, and we continue to provide $8,000 for the new fiscal budget also.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
I have a question, Joel. On the office equipment rental, I'm assuming that's the printer.
Let's see. Looking at yes, that would be the large printer.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, did we incur an increase that we hadn't anticipated because the actual came in over what was projected. I thought those payments were kind of structured.
You know, they're structured as far as the initial payment, but if you go into a month that exceeds the amount of clicks, there's been a couple of jobs. Early on, the one that pushed us over this year was we, in partnership with Carson City, did the Discover Us, which is their handout to all of Carson City for their recreation programming. We did, I think, two or three different additions for them, and it was a seriously large job. It held up the machine for nearly a couple of months, and the cost, we really didn't anticipate the total number of clicks, and we far exceeded the number of clicks in a month, and I think we paid at least 3 months that we had some overages that we had to pay. So that's the difference in that. Yeah. Okay, continuing down, once again, all of the other services, 76.6%. Operating supplies, 131.4. So when you look at the operating supplies, where we spent more was in the 0625. We had allocated 110,000 and it came in at 118,965.73. The bottom one, the works of art, we didn't have that in the original augmented budget, so most of the changes were with that, and that's the $30,000 transfer for the Mind of Da Vinci piece that's in front here. So that's pushing us up to the 131.
Hey, Joel.
Yes.
It just seems like an odd place for that line item to be in. Operating supplies. Is there, going forward, when we have a project like that, would it make sense to put it in other services or have another line item?
Yeah, you know, what we do is we try to stay as consistent as we can with the city's financial system, and whatever they're using in their HTE system, we stay consistent with it. I believe that this came over as a recommendation of where to place that $30,000 from the Finance Department of Carson City, and that's where we put it.
And then the other question I had, I want to go back to membership and publications. You know, we had like a significant savings in there this year, did we not? What makes up those publications, and did we not publicize in something this year that we had planned on?
That's actually like memberships like to Adobe Creative Suite and stuff like that. That's anything that we're publishing in, that falls under printing and advertising.
All right, thanks.
Okay, back down to the last item, utilities. We came in at 89%, budgeted 12,200, came in at 10,852.24. Bottom line, for all expenses, we had budgeted 902,562.72. That was our augmented budget number. Originally, we came in for the fiscal year 18 at 787,383. We spent 848,888.14. Reflective, once again, of 94.1% of what was budgeted. So, once again, revenues came in consistent with the last, going on 6 years now. Revenues came in higher than projected, and expenses came in lower. And final numbers will come back to you with the audit report. Once again, I'm anticipating in November, but we'll draw some comparisons between fiscal year 19 and 18 at the next meeting. The last page, 5 of 5, is just a worksheet that we use for Department of Taxation. Okay.
Are there any questions on the CTA fiscal year 18 budget from the board? If I could get a motion.
I move to approve the adjusted fiscal year 18 budget report as presented through the end of fiscal year 2018.
Second. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Moving on to, for possible action 8, to approve the CTA Statement of Accounts Payable, Checks, and P-Card report for July 2018. Chris?
So on page 2 of 3 are the accounts payable checks for July 1st through July 31st. The first one is the Bank of America, which is the P-card charges from June 5th to July 4th that you guys looked at last month when Joel presented them. The next one is Carson City Square is our July rent. We have a couple in there from Computer Artistry for design work. And then the next bigger one, that's $15,000 to Kurt Ginsheimer. Those were 2 invoices for the Highway 50 mountain bike marketing grants that we had last year, so those are fulfilling some of our grant objectives for a FAM tour that they're going to be doing that's going to take them from here to Ely to Caliente, right? And then a couple more down is Konica, that's the printer and the Duplo. Those are the leases and the maintenance agreements. Madden Media, that's a half-page ad that we partnered with the Commission on Tourism. It's in one of their pieces that's actually written in Mandarin, so we have an ad in that. The next one down, Nevada Department of Taxation, that's the taxation, the 3/8% for May. The next few down are for NV Consulting. And then the last bigger one is Sierra Nevada Media Group. That is for June's targeted internet ads. That's a contract that Joel and Kyle worked with the media group, and that is for digital, I can't remember now.
Those are all the digital targeted ads that we've done, all the focused ads from dining to mountain biking to arts and culture, and targeting from Portland all the way down to LA. The contract currently runs through the end of September. I've set up a meeting with Sierra Nevada Media to minimize the scope of work, maybe narrowing it down to something we don't have to go out to a full RFP. So we'll stay under 24/9, but it'll certainly be an amount that'll come back to you for approval. So you can anticipate that we should have that for the October meeting, so you'll get to see a better scope of work if we're going to continue to extend with Sierra Nevada. And I have to tell you, I would highly recommend we do based on the results, but I'm certainly going to take the advice of the new expert marketing manager, and if the numbers are up to her standards, then we'll move forward and bring it back to you in October. Okay.
And Joel, we've been tracking the clicks that we get, and so we can tell, how many clicks and all that.
Yeah, clicks, engagement rate. One of the things that Sierra Nevada also offers us, and some of those, when you look at some of the digital targeted ads, is the amount of people that actually show up in Carson City. So that's one of those that Sierra Nevada provides those. And what I can do is maybe we'll also provide some of the historical data for what the full contract that we did with Sierra Nevada Media provided through the end of September in October before we approve the next one. Okay.
So do you guys have any more questions or any questions on accounts payable checks?
If there are no questions, can I get a motion to
Not yet.
approve?
I'm going to do the P cards first.
He's in a rush.
So page 3 of 3 is the P card report,
Sorry.
which is July 5th through August 3rd charges. There aren't too many big ones on here. The biggest one is from American Roadway Magazine for $2,300. That was a half-page ad in their summer 2018 issue. The next one, there's a couple of them in here for Simple View, which is our contract for the maintenance on the app. Other than that, there's not a whole lot in here. If you guys have any specific questions on any of them. All right, that's all I've got.
Okay, sorry to get ahead of myself. So now, can I get a motion to approve the CTA Statement of Accounts Payable?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I move to approve the CTA account activity statement of accounts payable checks and P card charges for July of 2018.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes. Move on to action item 9 for possible action to appoint one member of the Nevada Commission for the reconstruction of the V&T Railway from among the members of the Carson City Culture and Tourism Board, or who is a designee of the CTA Board. I guess at this time I'll open the floor for any nominations or folks of interest. Joel?
I think we're just giving a little bit of a history on this. So as I think everyone in the room is familiar with, back during the legislative session of 2017, both Carson City and Story County, with the state's help and the governor's office, passed SB 57. SB 57 basically was a decommissioning of the existing commission for the reconstruction of the V&T Railroad, forming a new commission. That new commission was going to be more reflective of operations. The past commission was the commission that was required to be put in place for the construction. And the level of expertise was now needed for the operational side, so they went through SB 57. Passed unanimously and was supported by all of the counties. With SB 57, it passed that representation back to those that were handling either the marketing or funding of the operation or funding of the bonds, and that would then fall just strictly on Story County and Carson City. At the old board, you had Douglas County, Washoe County, and Lyon were all included. With the new formation, we as the CTA have one seat on the board, and that is obviously there to protect the interests of the Tourism Authority. The Tourism Authority has been instrumental not only in the funding, but also in the request for transparency, the request for return on investment. We've invested millions of dollars into the bonds, and this was now providing us with the new formation of the board, the opportunity to hire a new director, go in a different direction, hire a new marketing firm, all of which we were able to do in a short amount of time. The new commission was formed and took seats in October of 2017, and in a short amount of time we were able to handle all of the transformations that both counties felt needed to happen. So the 5 representatives that are currently on the new formed board, not only do we have one from the CTA board, at the time the CTA board elected to have me continue to represent the interests of the board. With a new board, it comes back to you if there is somebody that's interested. I certainly can continue if that's not the direction of the board, but I would imagine that there's some interest when you have a new board coming in, and I would recommend that you have somebody from your board before you have me continuing, so hopefully that happens. But the makeup of the board, you also have a single representative from the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors of Carson City elected to have Nick Morano as the city manager, and he sits on the commission. He still sits on the commission, although he's not the city manager representing the interests of the Board of Supervisors. You have 2 representatives from Story County. Also, a representative coming from their tourism authority. The current position is held by their director, Denny Dotson, who's also the chair of the commission, and Jack McGuffey. Jack McGuffey is a commissioner, and he sits on representing the interests of Story County. I believe that'll change at the end of the year, because I believe that there'll be a new commissioner in his position at the end of the year. The 5th is that of Stan Jones. Stan Jones, it represents the interests of the governor's office. The governor's office has an appointee, and Stan was appointed also in October. So that's the current makeup of the board. So you'll be adding a member from your commission to a very, very engaged commission, one that's made a lot of changes. Elaine was able to stand up under public comment and say some nice things about me, and I certainly appreciate that. And now I get to say some nice things about Elaine between this one and the next one. She was hired as the new general manager of the V&T Road, and I can tell you has done an exceptional job as a new ED general manager. She hit the ground running, went through a pretty lengthy RFP process. I'm familiar with those, and it's exhausting, and when you're through that process, to have the energy that Elaine had to hit the ground running. We went through the same process to hire a new marketing firm, and she has weekly meetings with the marketing firm. They're doing exceptional things. One of the things that this commission wanted to see happen was the goal of cost recovery, and then the goal of driving room nights. They're very near that cost recovery goal that we've set, and there's no doubt with the new marketing firm, with Argentum, they're going to start filling our rooms. That's the reason why we've invested millions of dollars into this product, and it's an amazing experience. So I want to thank Elaine for everything she's done. I think she's done an exceptional job, and we certainly could not have hired a better manager or general manager for the V&T Commission. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, and hopefully there's interest in somebody wanting to represent the CTA.
Can I ask a question? Is there a term limit on this particular position?
My understanding is that the term for this position will go consistent with the term on this board, because it's a representative. There's no term per the SB 57 that I'm aware of. It's just as long as you represent the interests of the CTA board.
Okay, so now I'd like to open up the floor for any nominations or interest from the board members. I think we might have one, someone that's already rode the train and took the time to already go see what it's about. So I think that's pretty impressive. So
Let me say something if I could.
sure.
Okay. So yeah, as Mike was saying, and Elaine said earlier, I did have a chance to go up and ride the train and meet with Elaine. And not knowing too much about the train before I met with her, other than riding on the Polar Express with my grandkids in the past, I was quite impressed with the presentation she gave me and what we talked about, and her motivation and her energy and the plans that they have for the train and all that went with it. And I was also impressed with the volunteers and the staff that she has and all the people out there that just wanted to make it a great experience for everybody. And I'm on board. I think it's a great thing that we have here. And I feel like it's Carson City's train, so I know they're looking at expanding, the railway into the canyon and hopefully into town eventually. And I would be motivated and more than honored to represent the CTA and on that board. So I'd like to put my name in the hat for that. And thank you, Elaine, for showing us and giving us such a great presentation. And I too would say, if you guys haven't been out there to experience that, to go do it. I was impressed. I mean, the miles of track that they laid, I was impressed. I knew it went to Virginia City, but once you get on that thing and you see how it winds around the mountains, and it's a lot of work and a lot of effort that went into that. So again, thank you, and hopefully I'll.
Right, yeah. Any other interest? If not, can we get a motion for appointment?
I'll make the motion. Gladly. I move to appoint Mike Santos to the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the VNTO Railroad pursuant to Section 3 of the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the VNTO Railroad Act, or Railway Act of 1993, as amended by Senate Bill Number 57 from the 2017 legislative session.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Well, congratulations, Mike. You got big shoes to fill, it sounds like, but we all, I'm sure you'll do a great job, and we're happy and thrilled that you've taken on the position.
Well, Mike, you've spent many hours since your appointment onto this commission in our office working with both Chris and I, and I anticipate that we'll be spending hours, and I'll transition you through. I was part of the budgeting process for the VNT, and we'll put you together with the rest of the commission individually before the process. So I look forward to helping you through it. Okay.
All right, on to agenda item 10, the approval to allocate $65,000 per year for 5 years to the VNT Commission. Joel?
All right, perfect segue to this. We were approached earlier in the year when I put together the budget, both Denny Dotson and I, coming in really blind, having to put together a fiscal year budget for the operations of the VNT, and never really seeing any transparent numbers coming from the VNT Commission for years. My personal opinion was that it was an undertaking. I mean, it was going to, outside of knowing how much was being spent for the bonds, how much the city was spending on their bonds, the revenues, the rest of it, it was a real shot in the dark. And one of the things that we've been able to do is we were pretty close. There needed to be a few changes. There were a few line items that were missing, line items such as ongoing maintenance. You've got millions of dollars worth of track, and there was no money set aside for maintenance. So knowing how an operational budget would need to work, we knew that there was going to be some shortfalls. We'd already addressed one of those shortfalls earlier as a commission to get them through the end of the fiscal 18-year budget. We allocated $80,000. That $80,000 comes from a fund that money is set aside and only can be used for the VNT. The VNT, the wording in it has anything from marketing to operations on. So it certainly fell within the scope of the wording of the potential funding, and the previous board did allocate that money to get them through fiscal year 18. Moving forward, there's been a request of some ongoing funding, not only from Carson City, but also from Story County. Story County collects a percentage tax, not a room tax, and they're certainly stepping up to the game to help the V&T balance its budget, its operational budget, and I've come up with an opportunity, hopefully, to be able to do the same. Although originally we were hoping to come up with closer to $70,000, when I look at that fund, the fund that's set aside, the V&T Capital Projects Fund, we currently have a anticipated carryover of about $575,000. There's a minimum balance in that fund of $100,000. So taking away $100,000 from the $575,000, also taking into account that we have to make the bond payment. The reason why we have this second 2% is in the downturn of the economy, we were not getting enough room tax revenue to make the bond payments. The final 5 years of the bond payments have started. We are going to sunset the bond payments in 2023. The highest 5 years of the bond payments started this next year with $405,000. We're going to fall a little short every one of those 5 years, even with our projected revenues. We'll get pretty close year 4 and 5, but comfortably I would want to hold back an additional $140,000 from that carryover of $575,000, so that we always have the assurance that we'll be able to make that bond payment first. That's our priority. In addition to that, that equals will leave us $335,000 in that fund. If you take the 5 years before we sunset into 2023, divide that equally, that comes up with $65,000 that we possibly could allocate to the operations. I have to tell you, a year ago, I would not have been comfortable bringing this to you as a commission as a request, because I couldn't comfortably tell you that it was money that would be wisely spent. I'm very comfortable with the request now. I think you've got an operation and a marketing component that's going to prove itself to be successful. They're putting, for lack of better terms, seats in butts, and they're going to put heads in beds. And so right now they're meeting those goals, and I'm confident that you're going to see that return on the investment. There's not a lot you can do with this fund money other than the fact that it can be used for those line items as detailed. The revenue that comes in through that fund is used for our marketing. We approved that a little over 2 years ago. We didn't touch the carryover. We didn't touch the carryover for something just like this. The only other thing that I remember coming out of this fund was a couple of years ago, there was a lighting project that needed to happen for the Polar Express. We provided $70,000 out of this fund for the Polar Express. So if you look at collectively the last couple of years, $80,000 this last year, $70,000 the year before, so it's a little lower than what we've been able to give them in the years past, but this would be dedicating for 5 years $65,000 out of that carryover fund. I did, though, put in the motion that it's contingent on being able to make that bond payment first. So with that, open to any questions.
No, thanks for clarifying that the contingency fund and the bond payment will be taken care of first before the $65,000 is taken out of the fund. I think it's a great thing that we're helping out. Is there any other questions from the board?
Yeah. Has there ever been any contribution from the other counties, like Washoe, Douglas? Because I know it's been talked about in the past, but...
historically, I can't tell you through the years that I've been involved in the last 6 that I've seen any contributions, but I also don't think that there was any return on the investment. There was no revenue had by those other counties. I can tell you that the last year I have seen Story County step up to the game, and they're providing a significant amount of funding when it comes to providing maintenance operations. So really the 2 funding partners right now are just Story County and Carson City. Now, I would think that if the heads and beds, when we were looking at heads and beds the last couple of years, I think that Washoe County, a couple of the buses that came through did stay in Reno and not in Carson City, but I certainly think you're going to see that change.
And you mentioned they weren't doing a room tax, they were doing in Story County, I believe, or Lyon County?
Yeah, they have a sales tax. They did I believe it's a 1/8 cent sales tax. So they collect, I think it's about $120,000 is what they were at originally a year. I don't know what's in that account, but they were able to hold on. They held on to their portion and didn't contribute it to the operations until SB 57 had passed, with the exception when I think there was a little over $200,000 that was needed for one of the engine repairs. Story County stepped up and provided the funds for that. But now they're also contributing more as just a partner. They've taken on the fiscal responsibility. They maintain the budget for the operation of the VNT. Story County does, so they're certainly a player in the game now.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, can I get a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion. Move to approve the annual disbursement of 5 payments ending in 2023 of $65,000 to the Nevada Commission for the reconstruction of the VNT Railway from the VNT Capital Projects Fund carryover balance, with the payment contingent upon available balance after the annual bond payment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. We move on to agenda item 11, non-action discussion only, staff reports. Joel?
All right. Although it states May, that's my mistake. I'm going to go over the June transient occupancy report for you. And of all things to forget when I'm going through this, my glasses, but I think I've got it far enough away. We'll go through it real quick. So June 2018, once again, reminding you that this is a non-legislative year in comparison to a legislative year. We always have a couple of weeks in June as the session ends in the odd number year. So we're still showing a little bit of a loss collectively across the board. Top 5 had a loss of 7.5%, 1.9% for the properties representing 6 through 13. That's representative of revenue. So it's not occupancy, total property revenue basis, and that changes monthly. Sometimes you'll have a different property or two taking on number 4 or 5 in that list, so it doesn't stay consistent. Bottom line, we were at 4.89%. We did make mention, though, that we had a property going through some pretty major changes and had a lot of rooms that were unavailable. I don't know that that was the case on this one, but I can tell you that one of our top 5 properties had a pretty sizable decrease in their room revenues, almost $90,000. So it's something that normally that's a red flag when you see that type of a drop, not knowing if there's any construction or not, but I'll look into it to see why there was a drop of $90,000. When you're down a total of $105,000 in a month with one single property being one of your primary revenue generators, we need to look into it. So I'll have a report, although once again, I won't disclose the property, I won't disclose the information, but I'll let you know what the reasoning was behind the loss. There could be a lot of different reasons for it.
Joel, do the 17 numbers, do they reflect the FEMA bump that we received in the fourth quarter of last year?
That's also, when you look at the additional 2 weeks of the legislative session, absolutely. So we were one of the 2 counties that certainly had a lot of room nights from the FEMA contract employees. Carson City stayed consistent and did collect room tax on those, so we saw some pretty sizable bumps from the June on all the way through December. So that's something we'll have to take into account when we do our comparisons through the end of the year. Continuing down or over to the side, we'll look at average daily rate. Average daily rate did drop between 2018 and 17, down $5.45 for the top 5 properties, down $1.13 for the 6 through 13. The RVs were up $4.27 a space. Once again, I think that could have a reflection more towards the FEMA than it would have with the legislative. Legislature, we really haven't seen a real decrease in the rates during a legislative session. Sometimes you actually see a difference. You'll see an increase in some of the rates, but this one definitely, it was the first time I've seen that drop. Going back over to room revenue, comparison between 18 and 17 on the calendar year. You can see that decrease because now you're only looking at the 2018 January through June. so a decrease of $924,000. When you look at the fiscal year, just below it though, the fiscal year we're still up $1.8 million. That's a reflective of 9.85% increase. So 2018 fiscal year through June, $20,913,000, $19,037,000 reflectively for fiscal year 17. Room revenue dropping down comparison between 17 and 16. This is another one of those where you can see those pretty significant bumps in 17. 17 was an absolute record year for Carson City. And when you looked at the rest of the region, most of those increases were reflective of about 3 to 5% tops in all the other communities. So this certainly plays out with legislature, with FEMA, and some pretty sizable increases in travel and tourism. But we had a 24% increase between 16 and 17 calendar year, 16.37% in our fiscal year 16-17, same time frame. Down below that, room revenue. This is where you can drop in the comparison of a non-legislative year. We're up 12.2% between 16 and 18, up 27.84%. That 12% was reflective of calendar year. In the fiscal year, up 27.8%, an increase of $4.5 million. So 2 non-legislative years, 1 non-FEMA year. You can see that we have an increase in fiscal budget of $4.5 million. So pretty impressive increase. RevPAR collectively, when you've got your revenues down, your occupancy, RevPAR is going to reflect that. Top 5 properties down 8.64. That's revenue per available room, and $2.39 down for the top 6 through 13 properties. Trailing 12, we're still up, so the trailing 12 months. So that would be reflective of the numbers you see consistent with the fiscal year because you're now in June. In June, the last 12 is your entire fiscal year. So we're up 9.85% for our trailing 12 report. Trailing 12 report between 2016 and 18, an increase of 27.84%. So the last couple of years have been stellar, to say the least. Okay. Backside, you've got your available and occupied rooms. I did make one change on this per request in our last couple of meetings. You can see the available rooms, top 5 properties versus occupied 11. They came at 79% occupancy. That's compared to 82.9% in 17. Top 6 through 13 properties, 62.7% occupied as compared to 65.4% in 17. You've got your RV and remaining. Now this is where I've made the change. I wanted to show the extended stay. Our 28-day plus, I'm now breaking out in the report, and we have this data historically. So if we ever need to go back and look at it over the last couple of years, when Chris and I started changing and reporting all of the occupancy, we did break out RV from the standard 28-day, but the numbers you've seen included that. So when we were talking over a month's period, it could be 15 to 16 to 18,000 loss of room night to 28-day. Now you can see the breakout of how many of those are RV versus how many are lodging properties. So for June, the 28-day RV, we had a loss of 8,399 spots in RV parks that were extended stay. We had 6,715 room nights in lodging properties that were extended stay. So I think that's a better comparison now, rather than thinking they're all just lodging properties. Once again, total occupancy came in at 66.52% versus the 17 numbers at 68.6%. Still solid numbers when you're looking at 16 to 18, knowing what we had with FEMA, knowing what we had with legislature. Still great numbers. Those are solid. And if you talk to the properties themselves, I think they're still very excited over the revenues that are coming in. So any questions on the lodging report?
No, but I believe I did see a report where the per diem will be going up a little bit in October.
And I think, Stu, you were part of this conversation years ago, and we were wondering, we were sitting around after 2 years kind of banging our head against the wall of why regionally some per diem rates were going up, and Carson City was actually seeing a decrease in our per diem rate when we're so dependent on governmental travel and having legislature coming in every other year. we took the steps as an authority and worked with Mark Amadei's office and put our voice out there. And I think that now, knowing how the mid-level properties are the ones that influence our per diem rate, I know we've had some pretty strong price integrity between all of our mid-level properties, and that's certainly playing out to seeing those per diem rates. But that'll be a spike for us. I agree.
Moving on to marketing manager recruitment update. Chris?
So I'm pleased to announce that we have our new marketing manager, and she's going to start working with us on Friday, but she came tonight so I could introduce her. This is Lydia. Did you want to come up and say hello or anything? Or?
Sure.
Is it?
Is there a button I have to press?
Nope.
Hi, welcome to all of you. I was really pleased to be at the August meeting and observe before I went to my interview. And the Sunday after my interview, I actually got to go in the V&T Railroad, so that was a great experience all around, and I couldn't be more excited to start this position. And coming in from a family business, but also some recruiting background and marketing background, I think there's a lot of my experience that I can bring to the table and really hopefully fuel this mission to, increase the occupancy rates and get our name out in the city, into the communities in California and all over. And I'm really excited. So thank you guys all for having me today.
I'll just say I was lucky enough to be a part of the interview process with Lydia, and I can tell you I don't think we could have picked a better person, someone with really excited with your experience and your knowledge. You're very impressive, and I'm just thrilled that we have a chance to work together.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Ditto.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, I will add to that. It's a pleasure to have somebody coming in, interviewing for a position, being as well prepared as you were. So congratulations, and we certainly look forward to continuing to move forward with everything that we do, and I think you're going to be a big part of that. Congratulations.
Events update. James?
I guess it's my turn. Just an update on some previous events that just took place a couple of weeks ago. The Outlaw Flat Track Race. This is year 3 for us. The first 2 years, we've seen some slight growth. Year 3 was big because we wanted to see where this would go, if this is something that we would continue to endorse. And Robert Hansen blew it out of the park. The seating capacity for this arena at Fuji Park, with the additional seating, roughly taps out at around 1,350. 15 minutes prior to the event actually starting, he had to announce that it was at standing room only at that point. So by 7:30, there were still people in line outside to come in. The picture on the far left there, with the kids standing on the rails there, just imagine the entire arena with people standing in areas where they probably shouldn't be at. But there was even an older gentleman standing on top of the rails, holding on to one of the tall poles and surveying over everyone. So it was a very, very successful event. It's probably the biggest event that we've had at Fuji Park, and it's a cornerstone event, I would say, to hopefully build and get the city to trust and allow us to do more there at that arena. Obviously, the seating capacity is something that we're going to have to address for next year. Karen, I might stop by your office and have a chat about that to see what we can do to invest in that facility. One of the concerns about that event, though, is that because the sound was not working, Robert Hansen did have to hire his own and bring in his own event or sound equipment to run the event. So hopefully we can help move forward. I spoke with some members of the RAC and already know that they're committed to fixing the sound there, so we're already making progress on that department there. So really happy about that. The Jukebox International Film Festival finished up this, and I haven't had a post meeting with them to get specific statistics about their event. I did attend all 2 days of it, and also went to some of the ancillary events that they did together. The images that you see here on the right side is a band from Brazil. The name is Santa Jam. They performed at Sassafras. Very, very, very high energy group, but grassroots type music, bluegrass type music, and they were able to perform not only at Sassafras but other places within the region, and also they got haircuts at East 50 Barbershop, I think is the name, and they also performed there while they were getting their haircuts. So it was a cool environment to for them to be here and also help us market Carson City as a place that has cool things going on. On the left there's a band that came from New York. These they went to Africa and got influence from the mixture of jazz music and also influence from the African cultures out there. And they came to not only were one of the featured films that they had, but they also performed at Sassafras, and they also went to Carson High School and played with some of the high school kids there to kind of show them some of the music, so kind of brand the horizons of some of these high school students. So it was a good overall campaign for us to promote not just arts and culture in Carson City, but have the youth interact with some artists that they would never had a chance to experience otherwise. So in the coming weeks, we'll have a meeting with Scott and Dana about their event and look at ways that we can do to improve it and make it better, and also see what we can do to make it grow. I just don't have any data on that now. Upcoming events. So we have the NAFA Worlds this weekend, September 14th to 16th. There are roughly 30 to 40 teams that are coming. They're all coming from out of town. So they should be filling in a lot of the properties here locally. The other one is All World Sports has their baseball tournament on September 22nd and 23rd. I've surveyed their website to look at the amount of teams that are participating. We're roughly around 40 plus teams and counting. 30% of those teams are all coming from out of town. These aren't events. This Stetna's Sierra Prospect is not an event that we are actually in charge of running, but we are helping with this event. This event is actually an official road bike event for Interbike. They are starting their race at Mount Rose, coming down to Washoe Valley through Carson City through an aid station that we have here in town, on their way back up to Lake Tahoe. This kind of fits our branding efforts that we've been focused on, our outdoor recreations and working with teams and getting our branding in supporting of Stetna's Sierra Prospect helps with that overall message. Interbike is coming up next week. This was traditionally in Las Vegas, but this is the first time that they're moving it to Reno. We will be there with our nonprofit organization, Muscle Powered, promoting not only the outdoor trails that we have here in Carson City, but also the Epic Rides Carson City Off-Road that we have next year. So it's a co-effort between us and our nonprofit organizations here in town to continue to hit home the message that Carson City is a great place for outdoor recreation. So questions, thoughts?
James, on All World Sports, has their participation been growing, bringing more teams, or has that been declining?
So the teams have been declining in terms of my conversations with Scott. However, we have been putting in efforts to see what we can do to maintain and also get back on track to grow that. A lot of our concerns is kind of things that we feel might be out of our hands. The amount of youth that are playing sports is declining in general, and we feel like that might have something to do with the fact that we're getting less teams as the years progresses. Scott and I, we've talked with this, and we're trying to work with Ed to see what we can do to maybe not only reach out to the California players, but maybe see what we can do to attract the Idaho and also Salt Lake City players as well.
All right, thanks.
Hey, James, has Reno Sparks, their facilities taken any of the events from this area and gone up there because of the lack of, potential fields we have here?
Great question. There are partnerships. JZETS and his All World Sports does have tournaments that utilize both fields. As far as I'm aware of, all the events and tournaments that we have had, we haven't lost any of those to Reno specifically. I would probably think maybe it's an opportunity cost issue to where we aren't able to gain new teams or new events because of the new facilities they're building in Reno. But I don't have any specific data on that at the moment.
James, has Terry McNutt contacted you at all about wrestling? They're working, she and her husband are working towards getting the wrestling tournament in February, which is a shoulder season event that would be held at the MAC here. So, and that's an extremely well-attended event. So I would have you double back with her on that.
Thank you.
And that's the high school state championship? Perfect.
Have they been going to Las Vegas for that tournament the last couple of years?
Yeah, I've had a chance to attend the wrestling tournament. I had a nephew that was a state wrestler, and they're typically held at UNLV, but the NIA likes to be able to balance between the north and the south. Mm-hmm. There just hasn't been an opportunity for the facility requirement, is my understanding, and I think we might be able to now that we have 40,000 square feet, including the high school gym, we probably have the square footing to meet their needs. So
yeah,
that'd be great.
I agree with Karen. That's such a valuable time of year for us to drive some tourism and some heads and beds. So it'd be great if we could get them back.
It packs the MAC Center.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, James, has there been any interest with Interbike being in Reno, and that's a big event. Has there been any interest for any other biking and or trail running events or anything that would promote our outdoors here, our trail systems or anything like that? Has anybody contacted you regarding that?
We have a really, really great local organization that does a lot of our trail runs, ascent runs. They do things not only in Carson City, but also Lake Tahoe area. And they do a winter run series that's phenomenal. So it's just a matter of us working with them to see what we can do to help their event grow. But I personally haven't been contacted by anyone new in terms of that arena.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mark, Arts and Culture update.
Good afternoon. Mark Salinas, Arts and Culture Coordinator. Thanks for having me here this evening. I have two back-to-back agenda items that I want to present to the new commission. And by the way, I'd like to thank the commissioners who've reached out and met with me. I was able to sort of explain my perspective of the last 2 years, take a look at the arts and culture history in Carson City, but also sort of give a game plan and my vision going forward. The two documents I'm going to present back-to-back are documents already presented to the public. According to CMCC, the Cultural Commission is to give an annual report to the Board of Supervisors by May 1. And so what we have here is the exact document here. And I thought this would be a good opportunity just to sort of tell you what we've done, basically April 2017 to April 2018, as well as what our plan is for the next year. These are typically presented to the Board of Supervisors by the chair, who is Terry McBride, and myself. This was actually our first opportunity to give a full year. The first time I presented to the Board of Supervisors was maybe just about 5 or 6 months. I'm not going to read everything to you, but I did highlight some notables there in red. This is Terry's presentation where she started out listing the number of individual artists and organizations who presented to the Cultural Commission, many of them being new to us. Taking note that the attendance of the meetings by the member of the public on that side of the microphones was very high, with 21 people in attendance in our January meeting. Our grant workshop in trying to augment and get a high ROI for our RAC grants. We refreshed the entire process, made the application more user-friendly, drew eligibility, non-eligibility, even scoring rubrics. We had 16 organizations represented there, 10 of which were new to the process. And then going forward, our first priority is the complete drafting of the policies and procedures. This, of course, is the roadmap. I have here to my left several public art policies throughout the United States. In my research, it came to a surprise that there is no municipality in the state of Nevada that has this, not Reno or Las Vegas. But this, of course, is the how-to. Our Arts and Culture Master Plan is a 14-page document listing about 40 organizations, local and state, that we are to work with, but it doesn't say how to. So everything from pulling together public art panels, where we place art, why we choose art, what happens when we want to deaccession something, what if something gets damaged, insurance, maintenance, and that sort. My presentation to the Board of Supervisors, what I did is in red, there's about 5 or 6 bullet points of that Arts and Culture Master Plan. And so one of them is extending and equalizing access. So these are just ways I personally reached out to the community, whether it's on air, in person, in that period of April 2017 to April 2018. And you'll see in person, you'll see stuff from Washoe Valley Garden Club, from invitations to high schools, also in print, over the internet, whether it's podcasts. Conducting ongoing cultural planning. This is really setting the concrete foundation of what's going to take place 10 years from now, and making sure everything is in place for future growth, whether it's establishing departments or defining pathways to success. Creating a nurturing cultural environment. A lot of what we do can fall under this category for this. What I showed was grants. That represents about 25% of the actual operating budget that I have on a yearly basis once my salary and benefits are deducted. Improving quality, that's everything from putting together workshops to assisting our local arts organizations in applying for grants, taking part and finding where we can sort of make little art interventions, whether it's in Nevada Day Parade or even the program cover. Preserving cultural pluralism and promoting diversity. Capital Collage was a one-night-only event, almost carnivalesque, in that it took talent and entertainment from literally all over the state and planted it here for play and stay over the weekend, over that Nevada Day weekend. One of the partners I'm happy to work with is the Nevada State Museum. They've been able to put together great events that reach out to our Polynesian, Hispanic, Chinese citizens here in Carson City. And finally, promoting aesthetic considerations in local decision-making. These are ways where we're trying to reach out and tap into the community. And you'll see some mention of local government, even local city departments. Going forward, the dedicated priority is in establishing the policies and procedures for public art, taking a look at the charter of the Cultural Commission, and then the following points are continue growing a vibrant community, not only for the people that live here, but also for people that visit. So what I'll be doing going forward, then it wraps up with the attendance record for commissioners. 75% is requested by the Board of Supervisors for regular meetings year to year. You'll see that our highest attendees is a present company, and our citizens at large. And what I'll be doing going forward is presenting this to you that same month that I presented to the Board of Supervisors. But in preparing for this presentation here today, I think another good idea is actually sending this out to all of our local arts organizations, so they're on track with where we're going as well. That's that agenda item. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No, I just want to say I was speaking with you within the last couple of weeks. I was impressed that you're taking on the task of the policy and procedure manual, kind of the roadmap of how arts and culture works, and getting best practices from around the country. That's a daunting job, I know, but I think it'll pay off.
You know, unfortunately, it's nothing that we can copy, cut, and paste from another city, because it depends upon the staff of the department, budget, how the local government is organized, and to some degree, the politics and where the city is at, and where they are in readiness for embracing that arts and culture. If you don't mind, I'll just continue with the next agenda item. Okay. So this is a wrap-up presentation that I presented to the Cultural Commission and to the Board of Trustees of the Library of the Big Read Grant. This is a federal grant. The NEA, the National Endowment of the Arts, is a federal agency. They have many grants. The one that I applied for was called the Big Read. It's a literary grant. An initiative of the NEA in partnership with Arts Midwest. The NEA Big Read Grant broadens our understanding of the world, our communities, and ourselves through the joy of sharing a good book. What this grant does is it challenges communities to make 30 days of programming based upon a pre-selection of novels. True Grit was on the shelf of those novels, and that's the novel I chose to base these 30 days of events on. This is just a little historical background of recipients of this grant in the state of Nevada. You'll see a hot spot there, 2007 to 2009, then an absolute drop. So we were the recipient for 2017-18, and no winners were chosen this past year. As an applicant, I applied while I was at the Visitors Bureau then, administered it while I was at the city. I believe then, as I do now, that city-state partnership is very important for the arts here in Carson City. We are obligated to have a city partnership as a library in this grant, but I reached out to the State Museum for that extra oomph. Timeline: applied for the grant in January 2017. We were notified in the summer. Of course, that fall, the Nevada Day Parade's theme was arts and entertainment. And as part of the grant that I wrote, I baited them saying, if you choose us, we will pre-celebrate by making a fabulous Big Read Grant float for our Nevada Day Parade. So here's the diagram that I put together for this 50-foot long rattlesnake, which is you could more or less say it's a character in this novel. But of course I couldn't do that and put all these events together. Thank God there's a woman by the name of Kathy Rush at our local library, now at our state library. And she was able to take all that junk in the back of my Subaru there from Home Depot and transform it with the help of the WNC's Latino cohort. She was kind enough to bring us to her backyard and have these students really put some, roll up their sleeves and put some sweat and smiles into making this thing. We had T-shirts for the parade goers, the library staff, as well as WNC Latino cohorts. The piece ended up being on display at the WNC Art Gallery. Lupe Ramirez is one of our cultural commissioners, and so she's really opened the door to get some youth participation in what we're doing. When you have 300 or 400 books and you need bookmarks put in them, when you need eye patches put on them, they really helped out not only on doing some of the preparation, but also serving as greeters for many of our events. Reno News and Review, Chris Wagner, the arts and culture editor there, came down here and was doing some an article on the preparation for this show. KUNR asked me to come up and speak to them. The governor reached out and put out his congratulations. Running parallel to this was a piece called Reimagine Space, which is a RAC-funded project for art intervention in vacant storefronts here in the redevelopment, one of the two redevelopment districts of Carson City. What we see here is on the corner of Stewart and Proctor. It's a west-facing wall of a vacant commercial building. There's broken glass, gas containers, abandoned wood. At Rural Roundup, Joel was kind enough to introduce me to Dion Reynolds, who's a photographer based out in Eureka. They stepped up to the plate with an idea of doing one of their largest scale wheat pastes to date, and going out there and blocking off the wall so no one would park in it, I ran into this gentleman, Mr. BB is his name, and I was telling him about this project. He was very curious. I said, yeah, we're going to put up a big piece of artwork here. It's a commercial vacant building. Everyone from walking down downtown Carson is going to be able to see this. So he took an empty pizza box and taped it up to the wall. No parking, on Thursday. And I just thought it was just a really humorous first sort of, exchange with the public in this space. Here I am later on that week installing the piece with Dion and Trish. This is a 9-foot by 22-foot long wheat paste of an image that they took on a small disposable plastic camera. As I said, it's a great intervention walking up and down Carson Street. Later on that afternoon, I found myself at Station 51 with an ingredient list by our local chef, Charlie Abaud. I asked Charlie to give me a recipe on how to make some creamy grits. So I went to the station and set up shop there. I don't know if anyone has ever cooked with 30, 40 hungry guys looking at you and 2 live cameras and a dull knife, and yeah. But Rachel Schneider, the PIO for the city, is really fantastic and fun to work with, and she put together a fantastic video that we put out on YouTube. Some of the data for this video that was put out, the highest viewership for this was adult males. I think it was 25 to 40. Now, statistically speaking, that is that's a demographic that we don't reach typically on a day-to-day basis with arts and culture in Carson City. So it was a fantastic collaboration. Yes, sir.
Hey, I have to ask, how did the firefighters like the grits? Because I don't know that grits have ever been served in a firehouse.
No, sir. No, sir.
At least in Carson City.
This gentleman here was the guinea pig. I think his name is Jeremy. And when he went up for seconds, that's when everyone rushed the stage. Yeah. This is all in preparation of the weekend kickoff. I put together a call for artists. I've been collecting canceled playing cards from our 4 casinos that you see there at the bottom of the screen. And what I did was put out a call to artists, challenging them to make something out of a canceled deck of playing cards. Whatever it is, just use the deck. I expected, honestly, just to get people from Reno or maybe Sparks interested. It had statewide appeal. 74 works of art were on display at WNC. Gold Dust West and the Carson Nugget were the jurors. We had 3 categories: youth, WNC student, and adult categories. Going clockwise from upper left, this is a submission from Incline, Sparks, Henderson, Winnemucca, and Las Vegas. The Henderson, Winnemucca, and Las Vegas, those artists actually drove here to Carson City to hand deliver their piece when they dropped it off and came back to pick it up. The couple from Las Vegas have been to Reno several times but never have been to Carson City at all. The local clampers volunteered to make some little libraries based upon Western themes. So these are assets we have here that we can place throughout the city. Dion and Trish were kind enough to actually donate the original photograph that their wheat paste was based on. So it has a value of $500, and that's now part of the city's art collection. We also influenced some of the artists. Here you see another artist on Instagram. I guess she didn't use the entire deck. She's using the cards now for her own artwork on the right. Focus 3 is a statewide meetup of photographers, and Cindy Whitaker, who has a show right now at the Nevada Artists Association at the Brewery Arts Center, spoke at this meeting about her participation in True Grit. She's the one who made the guitar. We purchased the Best of Show. This is a mother and daughter duo from Washoe Valley, a mask and a rider. You'll see in the back a empty shotgun shell. That's from one of the Carson City Gun Club was also a partner, and he used those empty shells to for enumeration of the artworks. I have a meeting next week with Reno Tahoe Airport on seeing if we can get this snake there or some of the painted parasols from our Nevada Day Parade from last year in the airport. I think that's a fantastic first opportunity. I just love the idea of someone walking into airport and the first impression they get of Carson City is artwork. Rhonda A. Bend put together a fantastic film series, the 69 and 2010 version of True Grit. Here we have Glenn Wharton from the Prison Preservation Society. We used old posters to advertise the events. 441 paperbacks were distributed for free. There was an initial 300 purchased. They flew off the shelves. We had to order more. These are some other educational assets that grant was able to buy for Carson City. The Nevada State Employee Week fell within those 30 days, and the state library offered to be a place to hand out free books. I gave them about 30 paperbacks. 9:30 on Monday morning, they called and those were gone. I delivered an additional 15. Those were gone. And so they were a fantastic part, and that she had over 500 requests.
You're going to have to wrap it up.
Okay.
Because they have to start at 5:30.
Thanks. Okay. I'm just going to go through here. Opportunities for education, rattlesnake classes, partners with the gun club, partners with state agencies. Everyone from youth to seniors were involved in this. I'm not even touching upon the reader groups that were at Carson High School, the senior center, reader groups at the Stewart Indian School. The Marshal for the State of Nevada came up from Las Vegas, spoke to the kids at the Boys and Girls Club. He was a former club member. And in wrapping up, we're pleased that the Chamber recognized us as the best event of the year. Big thank you goes out to all of the people helping put this together. Federal agencies, state, local, city partners, individuals, businesses, news media, and finally all the individual artists.
Thanks, Mark. I can tell you, having been a small part, at least the judging of the True Grit event, it was a fun event, and a lot of talented people were involved, so it was fun.
Thank you.
Future agenda items, Chris?
Do you guys have any agenda items that you want brought to next meeting?
Not at this point, no.
I have one. I would like to see the board discuss it in the October meeting. We currently have an independent contractor agreement that will expire in January, and I'd like to discuss whether that's the way the board wants to move forward, or do we go back to a executive director position. I'd like to see that on the agenda in October.
I'd like to make a recommendation that the board also add an agenda item next month. I intended tonight to go through no differently than the V&T appointment. We currently have a seat on the Cultural Commission that is vacant. It's one of the non-returning board members. It was removed from the agenda tonight. The reason behind that is, no surprise, the municipal code does not address the fact that the CTA has a seat on the commission. Although the standard mode of operation is we've always had a voice on that commission, and I think at times been a very productive seat in the commission. I'm not very comfortable with the decision that we would move forward and have a replacement have to go through and possibly apply as just general public when you as a board, the Tourism Authority, provides well over $200,000 towards the arts and culture in Carson City. I think that's warranted of having a voice on that, in that, commission. That's going to require municipal code change. I would recommend that we bring back wording in October to advise and request that the Board of Supervisors address the municipal code, whether it's initially just addressing the fact that we would have a seat as early as the October meeting or wherever the next meeting is. But I think that that's certainly justified based on the involvement and the financial backing that you provide. So I would recommend that you bring that back in October.
Thanks. Anything else? We move to item 12, board announcement. Is there any announcements or any board members like to comment at this time?
No, not for me.
All right, let's move to item 13, any public comment? Hi.
Are you staying for the next meeting? If you're not,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Sharon Ross with Capital City Arts Initiative, and I'm glad that your meeting is right before the Cultural Commission, so I could say hello. CCAI does the exhibitions in here, and this exhibition is part of our Creative Growth Project, and we have an exhibition over at the courthouse with 16 artists from Creative Growth. All of these artists have pretty significant mental disabilities. The artist here is no longer living, but her mom lives in Minden and shared her artwork with us, so we were delighted to hang it. What's happening, our Nevada Neighbors series, the small flyer I gave you, we do 4 of these a year. We have 2 speakers coming who wrote the essay for the courthouse exhibition, and they're doing a talk about, they've worked a lot with artists that have mental disabilities and creating artwork with them, so they're going to come do a talk about it. So I really hope you can come hear the talk on Wednesday, September 19th. And a big shout out to Mark Salinas, because he got us more involved with the community, and we've got to change a venue. We're going to be doing it at the coffee shop in the Union. So down the street on West Proctor. So I hope you can come. Before your next meet, or right after your next meeting, we've got John Spiak from Santa Ana, California, coming up to talk about Grand Central Art Center, which is a pretty significant art center in Southern California, so I hope you can come hear it. The next exhibition in the courthouse is Gig DePaio, an artist from Las Vegas. He's a pretty amazing painter. Just paints, has UNLV's tried to hire him, but he says, no, I'm painting. So he paints nonstop, so I hope you can come see that exhibition. And save Friday, November 2nd, just advance heads up. We've got our fall fundraiser at the Adams Hub. That night it's an art auction, silent auction, and a party. And again, thank you to Mark for helping us secure that venue. Any questions? Okay, see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Any other public comment? Seeing none, our last possible action is to adjourn. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.
I'd like to be at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.